I'm Leah Colleton with Hava USA, so why don't you bounce on over with our dancing eggs to the Dice Squad.
Hey guys, how's it going? This is Dice Squad. My name is Marshall Dice, known as Adam Campbell, and I'm alone today, but I'm here with a very special guest here. I am here with...
Patrick Roach of Naturalist Games.
And Naturalist Games. And you guys have some great games. You guys have Costume Party, which we reviewed in a few episodes ago. You have Game Election, and you also have a new one.
Game Dictator.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Game Election and Game Dictator are both ways to decide what game you want to play. I don't know if you're like us, but we always get in fights as to what we're actually going to play. And so these help you figure it out. One's voting and one's fascism.
One is democracy, the other is fascism.
Yeah, it's the classic conflict, right, in card games, in life. They're fun. They take 5 minutes, and they're just kind of, we like to think, adorable, but also useful.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. Let's rewind the clock a little bit. Patrick.
Sure. What's up, man? How's it going?
It's going good.
Good.
So, Naturalist Games.
Yeah.
So, how did you get involved with creating games?
Sure. My day job, I don't quite design board games for a living just yet. My day job is with a software company, and in 2014, we came out with a game called Release, and this was just something we did through that software company as kind of a fun project that we did at work. And we put it on Kickstarter thinking, we'll help get it funded a little bit. And then it was huge. We made like $50,000, $60,000. We had this big game. We've sold thousands of copies. And my boss and I said, well, we could make more games, and so then we started putting together some games that were less software themed, and that's where Costume Party and then Game Election and eventually Game Dictator kind of rolled out of that.
Gotcha. Well, and I saw your logo. Well, how did you come up with the name Naturalist Games?
Oh, okay. Years ago. This isn't our first try at this. We attempted to make a game maybe 5-6 years ago called Evolution, which is all about, evolution. We spent all this time putting together all these like crazy cards and like working on art and just really hammering out what we thought was a great game. And then like Dominant Species came out. And then eventually the other Evolution game came out that's recent. And we found ourselves thinking, well, I guess we won't put out this game, and we were awful sad about it, but we had definitely incorporated and bought the website Naturalist Games, so we decided to stick with Naturalist Games.
So Evolution.
Yeah.
So what was the premise of Evolution?
In Evolution, you played a population of creatures that was gathering food in a variety of environments, occasionally gathering food that happened to be neighboring creatures, so you could eat your friends. And basically, the game was supposed to occur over epochs. So over like hundreds of thousands of years, your creatures would evolve and become more successful and have a higher population. Which, again, it's a great game. It just probably won't ever actually be a real game. But that's where the logo actually came from. Was just a little tiny skeleton bird. Was one of the illustrations that we had started with. Obviously, we dressed them up and put them in a little lab coat because we thought it was adorable. But yeah, that's how Naturalist Games came about. Success from failure is what we'd like to say.
And your company consists of yourself?
Yeah, it's myself, my partner, Alex Papadimoulis, and we have several game designers that work with me primarily. My little brother, which, again, we're a very adorable company, Andrew. And then also my friend Sean Cutler is helping us come out with some of our games for next year.
So of the three games we have, well, we know Game Dictator is fairly new, but
yeah. Which
of the two came first? Was it Costume Party or was it Game Election?
Game Election came first.
Okay, let's talk about that one first.
Yeah, sure.
So how did that come about?
Again, I don't think we're alone in this. I think a lot of nerd board game geeky guys have a tough time deciding what game you play. So you sit down, you're like, oh, let's get together, and then you spend 20 to 30 minutes deciding what game you're going to play, and honestly, you could play a game in that time.
It's just like choosing presidential candidates when you're voting. You know.
Yeah. You just kind of get back in these terrible debates. You make a lot of enemies. So we, just thought, man, we could literally play a game in that time. Why don't we play a game in that time? And so we put together this idea of coming out with a quick, 5-minute card game to decide how to do that. So.
And there's no current expansions to this game, or it's just a standalone?
Not yet, but we did have a really excellent review by Game Boy Geek. Hopefully I'm not talking about your competitors too much. Hey, Game Boy Geek, how's it going? Hey. Anyway, and he...
I don't even know who that is. But
he's a guy in the Dice Squad, or the Dice Tower Network that puts out reviews.
Okay.
Yeah, those guys.
Oh, those guys.
Those
Okay.
guys. But he came out with a way to expand it to 12 players, which was really fun. It felt like it's exciting to have people play your game. It's exciting to have people talk about your game. It's amazing to have somebody modify your game. Oh, I created a hack so you could play Game Election with more people. It felt amazing.
So it's kind of like Inception. It's a game within a game.
yeah. It's kind of meta.
Okay.
But yeah, so currently no expansions, and really all it is a quick ballot system with some special card powers. Hopefully, it shouldn't take you that long to play.
If only the election process was this easy.
And fair.
That too. All right, so
Sure.
This is Game Election.
Yeah.
Now, Costume Party.
Costume Party.
I reviewed this with General Dice, with Demo Dice,
Yep.
and the Mad Dog Dice.
Mad Dog Dice. It's a weird military title. I like it.
He chose it, not me. So, how did this one come about?
So this is actually the product mainly of my younger brother Andrew. I'd like to think he followed in my very nerdy footsteps, and he's been playing board games and Dungeons and Dragons most of his adult life. And he had this idea for a game where, well, it was like a costume party. And the whole theme of the game, if you watch an excellent Dice Squad review, you can find out more in depth. But the whole theme of the game is this idea that when you go to a costume party, you don't want to have the same costume as someone else. And my little brother just thought that was amazing. He just thought that would be a really fun game. And we basically, sat down and hashed it out, and it was a great bonding experience, and we're stronger and we love each other. Yeah. But it was really impressive, actually. It was great to sit down and talk to my brother and realize wow, you have actually a really clever game going on here and a really good mind for this sort of thing. So it came out of family bonding is what it came out of.
Well, and that's where most games should be played, with your family.
It's a family game.
Now, with Costume Party,
Yeah.
because one of the things that we talked about on our show
Sure.
was you only have 6 of the costumes. How did you narrow all these different costumes in the world to a mummery, a vampire, a robot, a zombie, a ghost, and a horse?
We wanted it to be kind of a cheeky aside to these ideas of 50s or 60s costume parties where you see on Nick at Night or TV shows where people are always wearing those very standard costumes. And I really think a 2-person horse costume is the funniest thing in the world. It's just hilarious. I imagine people standing at parties waiting for the other half of them. There's all sorts of great horse's ass jokes.
What the heck, man? We talked about this. You should have been here 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, or you both show up with a head. So I knew that we needed to have that in there. And the other ones were what we figured were probably the most general costumes, but also ones that we could come up with funny illustrations for. The robot is a cardboard box and a can of spray paint. Which
and I think it's funny the fact that they're so simple of costumes. It's not like you have a whole vampire costume. You just you're wearing lipstick and fangs.
Yeah. And also that's you bring up a really good point that we probably don't necessarily want to talk about all the time, but I'm the illustrator, and so I had to figure out things that we could actually draw that weren't too complicated.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that answers that question.
There you go. That's the real answer rather than my funnier answer. So.
Gotcha. All right. Well, and I know we had talked about on the show that are you planning any expansions for Costume Party?
Yeah, Costume Party's had a pretty good response from people. This year we're focusing on getting out some new games, but we think probably in 2017 we're going to come out with some more costumes for Costume Party. It's
Costume Party 2.
Costume Party 2,
Just
next year's party.
Next year's party. Just when you thought it was safe to put on your costume, it's not.
Son of Costume Party, the Costume-nator. Yeah, there's probably a lot of pretty fantastic Costume Party titles we could get to.
All right.
And actually, I think some of your suggestions we're going to take.
All right.
And so we're going to steal them. So,
well, and 'cause I know General Dice was talking about having couples costumes.
Yeah. Which is the horse costume is a partner costume, and that's been the most fun. Out of everybody that's played it, they've thought, man, this is the best. We get to interact and try to trick each other. And again, it's definitely the funniest. So I think General Dice is right. So we're gonna push for some couples costumes.
You heard that here, General. You were right.
Yeah, it's cool, General. And I know that sometimes, General, and this is just you and me. I know that sometimes, General, you feel like you're not getting all the games. Like there's only one game donated. So I made sure to bring an extra set of copies so that you both could have games for your collection.
Oh,
I'm here for you, General.
Well, thank you.
When I was first here for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're not gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so aside from your games,
Sure.
what are your favorite kind of games to play? Aside from, the awesome Costume Party and Game Election, what are your big types of games that you like to play?
Yeah, okay. I'm a huge fan of co-op games. Anything by Matt Leacock is amazing. I really, every week I still play for the past 10 years. I've played Dungeons & Dragons, so I get together with our party and we do excessively nerdy things.
You ever play Pathfinder?
Yeah, I have. But we're currently on 5th edition.
Okay.
For those in the know.
When I met you at Origins.
Yeah.
I played Pathfinder. Never again.
No. What happened?
Well, I was in a dungeon. Well, my friend, I have known a long time, just said, "Hey, you should come play Pathfinder." And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, "Come on, it'll be fun." And I sat down, and all I did was yell at me.
You know what? I tell you what. If you're ever in Columbus, you stop by our gaming table, and we'll have a much more receptive environment for you.
All right.
We'll only yell at you if you deserve it.
Oh, well. What was the thing? They kept yelling at me well, you're going to attack this. I'm like, well, what if I attack that? Or it was all about this time travel thing, and I'm like, we shouldn't be messing with this pillar over here. And they're like, we have to. And I'm like, but you're messing with the time stream. Doc Brown told us not to mess with the past.
Well, actually, all right. So aside from Doc Brown, who's a smart man, you actually kind of bring up a good point. One of the reasons I really like co-op games and in general is you do have a chance to go back and forth with your friends, and you make these choices. What Sid Meier said, a game is a series of interesting choices. But sometimes when you're playing competitively with people, it really sucks when you make the wrong choice, and it ruins the game for you. You're grumpy.
You screwed up, man.
Yeah,
you screwed up.
Yeah.
We spent 10 hours building this game, and you just had to mess it all up.
Right? And I feel like there's a camaraderie that comes out when you're playing something like Pandemic or any number of things. Forbidden Desert, more Matt Leacock games, which are so good. And so I don't know, it builds on itself, and it's it's a special type of fun, and you feel like you're doing something kind of productive. That said, I still play tons of competitive games, so maybe I'm just being.
I'm your friend 1 minute, bro, but the next minute you're dead.
Yeah, don't mess with me. But yeah, so in response, like that. But really, I have a pretty healthy gaming group. We get together pretty much every weekend, and we probably play anywhere between 4 or 5 games a weekend. And it's a big spread. We play a lot of Magic. We have our own little tiny, casual, not very good at Magic league. We have a whole Risk Legacy match that's still ongoing, and a whole bunch of.
Wait! You're still playing Risk?
Oh no! Well,
how long has this game been going on?
Years. Have you? We're playing Risk Legacy, which is another fantastic game, and it's something that I hope one day to completely crib a whole bunch of rules from and make another cool game like it. But the Risk Legacy is, again, it's competitive. but you're all working together to kind of build this eventually terrifying world that you're fighting in, and that's like really exciting to me. So those are the games I play, all of them essentially.
And you said that you've had a few good successful Kickstarters, right?
We have had, one in the gaming industry, but the first game that I mentioned, Release, was a card game that we created that's themed around software development. The actual gameplay mechanics are trick trump games. So it's similar to Pinochle, except that rather than scoring in one fashion, every round you flip over another card, and then you score in a different fashion each round. So it's a variable scoring mechanic, trick-taking game, and then there's cards with special powers. It actually had a really, really great response from like the software developer community. We got tons of people backing it, a lot of people talking about it. The face cards are all like famous software folks that like are bloggers and like influential speakers and that sort of thing. And
so like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or
sadly maybe is a tier under. Release guys, you're great. You don't have to be Bill Gates to be beautiful to me. But it's a lot of like writers and like industry professionals that just were like excited about the game and said, yeah, you can totally use my face on your card. Which is just another like great thing, like somebody wanting to get involved in your game is pretty fun.
You had them sign a press release, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. There's a lot of papers they had to sign.
Okay, all right. Just making sure.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, we raised a lot of money with that. We got a lot of good reaction, and we're still selling the game on Amazon. So you can find Release on Amazon. All these games, actually, for what it's worth.
So was it difficult, like with Kickstarter? Because the reason I ask is that some of my interviews, I've talked with people, and they say, like, Kickstarter is so difficult to get into nowadays, or, my Kickstarter didn't fund, and I talked to almost everyone until I was blue in the face, and it never got through. Sure. Was it very easy for you, or was it difficult, or was it like because you talked to your friends in the computer industry, you were able to like get your Kickstarter going?
Sure. It wasn't easy, but it did require a lot of planning. Before we even opened up the Kickstarter, we had like a series of press releases. We knew which reviewers we were going to send out items to. We had that core of face cards that I mentioned that spoke out and like tried to attract their followings. So we planned the game and we were happy with the game, but before we even dipped our toe in the Kickstarter waters, we had basically a plan for how we were going to get people to know about the game, because we would love it if it was just our friends, but we needed more folks so we could actually put out something quality. That said, at some point, what we didn't plan was how well it was going to do. And so we had all these stretch goals for adding in expansions, and there's like 15 expansions that came with the Kickstarter edition. And, we didn't really expect to see more than one or two, but we set all these stretch goals with this, like to make it look cool. And then we had to do all of them. So that was what kept us up late nights, and like work on fulfillment was like developing like a ton more content than we expected. In the end, I think we came out with something really cool, and in no small part because we had a lot of good community interaction, a lot of people sending us ideas, and of course giving us money. But it was certainly more work at that point than we had expected. So I think, you make sure you go in with a plan, specifically, not just for your game, but for marketing, but also recognize that, even in the best case, you're going to wind up doing a lot more work than you expect. So just know that and be flexible with your time and your commitments.
So like with the Kickstarter though, because one of the big things is those stretch goals.
Yeah.
Did you have to plot out which stretch goals you were going to have, or what was like some of the craziest? Because I've talked to a few people. What are some of the craziest ideas for stretch goals you guys thought of when it comes to Kickstarter?
We toyed around with these funnier ideas of we'll just come out and play them with you, or we'll send some pizza. We won't be there, but we'll order pizza in your environment when you get there.
But the coupon's only good till October of this year, so
Yeah, and we're not going to fulfill by then, so sorry. No, we had all these ideas for that, and eventually we said, well, what we want to do is just get people more content, right? We could offer wacky dinners or like signed copies, or T-shirts, but we're like, well, what I would want is more game, right? More options, and so that's the direction we wound up taking. Again, we wound up taking our base game, which is just a regular deck of cards, 58 cards, and coming out with a game that comprised of 400 cards. We had to work out how we were going to box it. Shipping costs were insane. It was a great, cool project, and we were happy to just be able to put pretty much all the money we made off of it into making a really cool thing. But yeah, they don't sound as zany as like the weird things that people offer, but it got out of hand pretty quickly. So
well, I asked that because in one of my previous interviews, I talked with a company or Three Direction who made Monster Legions, and we were talking about what were some of the craziest ideas we were throwing around for like Kickstarter ideas, and we got into this funny conversation about how Monster Legions the cereal, Monster Legions the lunchbox. So was there ever any like costume party the cereal?
We briefly suggested, because we didn't do Costume Party Kickstarter, but we were thinking about it, and we thought it would be funny to literally just send people the costumes or all the parts. Like, if you back at $60, we'll send you a cardboard box and a can of gray spray paint, and then you can be a robot too. We didn't do that, but I still think it would be funny to open up your box of games and then have like a pair of white sheets and scissors and be like, go to town. You're going to be a cool-looking ghost, dude.
Oh, man, my Kickstarter came for Costume Party. What's this? It's just a pair of fangs and some red lipstick.
Have fun. That would have been fun. Maybe we'll do that. Costume Party 2, Son of Costume Party, like we said.
Well, absolutely.
Coming in 2017.
Absolutely. So, and you've also been promoting at conventions.
Yep.
What conventions have you been at so far with your company?
Well, we specifically only were able to go to Origins this year, which is because we're Ohio folks, and Origins is, of course, in Ohio. But we did send out copies of Game Dictator and a few other little extras or gimmies to various conferences around St. George. We're sending them to the Con at the Castle. Which is Ravenwood in Hocking Hills.
I know those guys, Ravenwood Castle.
They're amazing. It's the coolest place ever for nerds.
Yeah, they did a shout out for us for Dice Squad. You know the Malted Meeple?
Yeah. They've got our games. If you wanna play our games, stop by the Malted Meeple. Enjoy some fine games and some spirits.
And milkshakes.
That was my best wink. It was pretty creepy. Sorry. But yeah. So. We can't. We're a small company. We can't afford to make our way to different places. Like Gen Con would be an expense that, of course, we want to, but we just can't afford to. And so, business-wise, we've made some choices to try to connect with conferences or gaming groups by sending them our games for giveaways, or sending them as we mentioned, like specialized versions of Game Dictator. So for St. George in Utah, St. George Con in Utah. We sent them a specialized version of Game Dictator with a card that was called the St. George Insurgent, which didn't change the game at all, because the Game Dictator still decides everything. Resistance is futile. But we thought that was like a fun way to try to support and be involved with these conventions without, breaking our bank. And so that's what we're trying.
So any fun stories from Origins or anything like that? Because we were at Origins ourselves. Well,
sure.
That's how I met you guys. But anything fun happen or anything cool with Origins at all?
Yeah. So as we said, release was very successful, and I finally had gotten away from the booth, and I was out playing some games. I was trying out something. I don't remember what. But I was in the middle of the game, and I got a phone call from our volunteers at the booth. We had a lot of great volunteers. And they said, Pat, there's somebody here with a copy of Release, and they want you to sign it? That blew my mind. I mean, instantly, I'm a nerd hero, a young god. I threw my dice. Well, I politely set them on the table, and then I ran through the convention center.
Enough of this game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was done. I was like, I'm leaving, guys. I made it 15 feet before I had to stop to, catch my breath because I play board games all the time and don't exercise. But eventually I made my way back to the thing, huffing and puffing, and this guy's like, can you sign my game? And I said, I would love to. And he's like, thanks, Alex. And I'm like, oh, I'm Pat. I'm the other designer. He's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that would be cool too. So that was the best and worst day of my life. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, all right. Did you say just, I would love to?
I would love to. I actually signed it with love from Patrick Roach. I don't know how well he appreciated that. He just said, did you just put your name on? And I said, absolutely not. I have to,
you get this personalized.
It's going to be a little creepy, and it's going to be on there forever because that's a permanent marker. So
you're gonna tell your grandkids about this.
Yeah, and you're going to be like, that guy is weird. Grandkids, don't hang out with him.
All right, so it's okay. So wrap it. So let's rewind a little bit. So, any advice to our viewers out there about any advice about getting a Kickstarter funded, or if they have an idea for a game, how should they go about creating a cool idea like Costume Party or Election or Game Dictator or any of the new ideas you have coming down the pike in 2016?
Yeah, and we do, and I will definitely talk about those. But I think for folks who are trying to work on their own Kickstarters and really trying to develop their own games, I think it's generally going to be a question of, an exercise in like small steps. We have a lot of ideas and a lot of cool games that are always kicking around in nerds' heads, and you want to make something that is interesting, that's engaging, and you want to have all this new innovation in it. Come out with one idea, build a game around it. If you have 15 mechanics, don't do it. Do one mechanic, and then add things in slowly so you're introducing one new thing, rather than just a host of things. And once you get this simple game, you can build on it. Even games with very simple core mechanics can wind up being very complicated. And from there, you're going to get, especially if you go on Kickstarter, you're going to get a lot of feedback. The people who are contributing to your Kickstarter are doing more than just giving you money. They are going to look at your rules. They're probably going to play test it or do print and play stuff. They're going to look at your artwork, and they're going to give you suggestions. They're going to talk to you. We receive tons of emails. We actually put the rules on a Google Doc and let people just print them off. And rather than just printing them off, they showed us all of our spelling errors and grammar checks. But more importantly, they gave us a lot of good advice on what they thought or what they saw in their gameplay. And you have to check your ego at the door a little bit and really realize that by getting all their viewpoints and getting that kind of community engagement, you're actually going to create a way stronger game. So get your game, make sure you can communicate it easily, make sure it's simple, and then take what people have to say to heart. You don't have to change everything, hold fast to your guns where you need them, but really consider the things they have to say and let them be invested in the project, and they're going to be more excited because of it. And then enthusiasm will come out with them sharing and sending along to people. If you take somebody's advice, you better believe they're going to tell people on their Facebooks or Twitter or whatever about it, and maybe give you more money too, which is cool. But
because who doesn't love money?
Tons of it. I love it. I could bathe in it, except you shouldn't. I hear it's very
dirty.
Yeah, it's gross. But yeah. So long story short, put your idea out there, but make sure that you're hearing the ideas that are coming in based on what you've given them. So, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, and that's one of the awesome things about Dice Squad that we're finding is that as the year's progressing and we keep building and building and building, we keep reaching out to new companies and new games. When I started this all the year and a half ago, I had no idea it would be like it is now, where I'm sitting down, I'm talking with game developers and stuff like that about all the cool ideas that they have come out with and stuff like that. So, absolutely. Yeah. So you heard it here, folks. So let's fast forward now.
Rewinding, fast forward. All right, yeah, gotcha.
So your new ideas coming down the pike in 2016.
Sure.
What do we got?
Okay, so hopefully by Origins, we're going to have two
2016.
new games. Origins 2016. We're going to have two new games out. One of which we're going to hope to Kickstarter, and one of which we're going to put out on our own. The Kickstarter one is a game that we're calling Layers, with an I, not a Y. And it's basically it's a game where you and your friends will all play monsters or monstrous creatures that are building their dungeon or their lair inside the same mountain. You race towards the center of the mountain where you uncover a terrible legacy. The first person to the center of the mountain then becomes this very powerful figure. Maybe they find an artifact, or they unseal an ancient tomb and release an evil into the world. However you want to phrase it. The other monsters then, the other players, have to band together and journey through their lair to confront them at the heart of the mountain. And we're really excited about it. It's a lot more complicated than our other games, and but what we're trying to do is make a lot of moving pieces for the game, a lot of parts, but make sure that when you're playing, you're only using enough that you still have a pretty simple gameplay, and you still feel like you're in this pretty complicated world, but your turns only take a few minutes because you're,
It seems like eons on the game board. Only takes 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, 45. But yeah, so that's Layers. We're very excited for it. We got a lot of good response on our Facebook and our Twitter from our early concept art by a very talented artist named Patrick Roach. And then
you wouldn't happen to be any relations to him?
Oh,
would
it's
you?
me. I was obliquely mentioning myself. Yeah, I'm pretty subtle like that. And then our other game that won't be on the Kickstarter, so it will definitely be there, is a game called Self-Diagnosis. Have you ever felt sick? Have you ever felt ill?
Well, I do feel a little
peaked?
Little bit. I just finished a large dinner at Red Lobster.
Yeah, well, one way you can try to find out what's wrong with yourself is to log on to WebMD. And inevitably, once you log on to WebMD, you're going to find out that you have all these terrible illnesses based on how you're feeling. You're going to be like, well, I might be running a temperature. Maybe I have the scarlet fever. And we were, myself and Sarah Irons, another one of our game designers, were talking about that idea and thought it would be really funny to make a game based on that premise. So in Self-Diagnosis, each player is competing to diagnose themselves with the worst illness, and just to be the most verklempt, and at the same time as giving their friends remedies to help them feel a little better, but of course make you be the worst off.
Well, what kind of remedies are we talking about?
Take a 10-minute nap. Oh, walk it off. You'll feel better. Try this herbal tea.
Okay.
You ever done acupuncture?
No, I don't think so.
You could. It would be great for that Red Lobster. But so that's the idea behind Self-Diagnosis, and that's going to be a much lighter game, similar in kind of depth to Costume Party. But we're also very excited about that one, also because it's hilarious.
And actually, I was just with Polka Dice and Demo Dice at Red Lobster. I think they may need that acupuncture after all the shrimp they ate.
Polka Dice is pretty funny too. God bless. Yeah, so that's what we're looking for, and we'll definitely be sending you copies of those, so you guys can give us your hopeful seal of approval.
Absolutely.
And if not, we'll just tell everybody not to watch our show anymore.
And that'd be bad.
That'd be terrible.
That'd be horrible.
Do that. We'd never blackmail you. We're not racketeers.
The general might, but we're not. But anyway, so I guess that pretty much wraps up my questions for Patrick. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Any final thoughts or anything about going on with your company at all, or anything for our fans out there?
You know what? It's every nerd's dream to make a board game. And nowadays, with crowdfunding and with easy access to design software and all these things, you can do it. It's really fun. And maybe you'll sell on Kickstarter, maybe you won't, but you'll be pretty happy if you build something. So just give it a shot. Give it a shot, 100%. And where can people find your games? Absolutely. You can find all of our games on Naturalist.com, and we also on Amazon. And it would help us out if you were at your local game shops and you said, we'd love to see Naturalist games here. Games. You catch my drift. Because that will help us get on distributor lists and that sort of thing. So. Absolutely, and we'll have links below, so be sure to check it out and send a few shekels their way. But Patrick, once again, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. Pleasure. But from all of us here at Dice Squad, this is Marshall Dice, known as Adam Campbell. Oh, and this is Patrick Roach, known as Patrick Roach. And we'll see you next time. Later.